A man had just returned home and was surprised when he saw an orb-like presence floating in the living room. The protagonist, Utamaro Kitagawa, most commonly known by his friends as Maro, entered his classroom and greeted both Higashino Shota and Nishida Yoichi. Yoichi shared how Shota had lent him a video with full scenes of monster girls. Shota told Maro that he was looking forward to watching the video but was eventually disappointed upon learning that the monster girls were old ladies. Yoichi became mad at Shota and clarified that the girls were 20 years old and above. When Maro heard more from Yoichi about the video, he became excited and accepted Shota's offer to lend him the video. Shota then interrupted the two, mentioning how he believes that women above 20 years old are considered old ladies. The conversation sparked a fight between Shota, who wished to soon be intimate with an older woman, and Yoichi, who is more into loli-type girls. Yes, FBI this guy right here. Seeing how their brewing fight was causing a scene in the classroom, Maro immediately called their attention and hinted that they were causing a disturbance. As Yoichi and Shota stared at Maro, they told him how he doesn't have a specific type of woman he likes. The two also mentioned how Maro was lucky since he has a very cute 5th grade sister back home. As the three were talking about how monsters don't age, Maro shared his wish of having an older sister who would take care of him even if he gets old. Maro was then advised to become an adventurer so that he could achieve his dream someday. Their conversation was suddenly interrupted when a man named Minamiyama Eiji entered the classroom. After Eiji and Maro saw each other, Eiji was bombarded with questions. Seeing Eiji changing, others felt like they became part of the lower caste. For students, titles carry a lot of status. Examples include the ace captain for club activities, amateur models who appear in fashion magazines, children of celebrities, and the president of the student council. 20 years ago, labyrinths appeared all over the world, along with cards that can summon monsters that could only be obtained inside the labyrinths. Using the cards, a person can conquer the labyrinth, and thus a new profession called adventurer was created. For people who were born after the labyrinths appeared, they couldn't imagine doing anything else. In the era of becoming an adventurer, they find it very easy to become one with the right amount of money. However, the money required is too high a hurdle for those who are not wealthy. To become an adventurer, one must pass 2 requirements: paying the registration fee of 100,000 yen and having a D-rank card. Everyone wishes to become an adventurer, but becoming one is just too costly, even for a high school student. Eiji, who was born to a wealthy family, became an adventurer. In the blink of an eye, Maro felt that he was now part of the lower caste group. Eiji now acts as if he had never hung out with Maro and the others. Maro wanted to express his feelings to Eiji, but since Eiji was now an adventurer, Maro was scared to approach someone who was at the top of the school caste. However, Maro thinks that everything will soon change, since moving forward he would also become an adventurer. Labyrinths appeared all over the world, in the seas, mountains, deserts, middle of the roads, and even on rooftops. The labyrinths appear completely at random, far more extensively than predicted. Countries around the world immediately dispatched troops to investigate them. It turned out that labyrinths contained monsters that seemed to have sprung out of fairy tales, games, and other fictitious stories. An abundance of rare metals, including completely unknown metals, was found along with mysterious sets of tools and artifacts of magic. The world then rejoiced as they now had drugs that could regenerate lost body parts and heal diseases once thought difficult to cure. Magical tools that seemed to be from a fairy tale fascinated people, especially the ones called magic stones, dropped by the monsters, which are used as fuel, fertilizer, etc. The discovery of myriad uses brought about a worldwide economic boom. The only thing that has ever destroyed an army armored with modern weaponry is the monsters in the labyrinth, later named deadly monsters. The army was helpless against the monsters, whose defenses made their attacks ineffective. Many developed countries pulled out of the maze, and because of that, the search for the labyrinths was put on hold. The labyrinth fever seemed to have subsided, but 6 months after the labyrinths were sealed, the tragedy later known as First Anglemore happened. Monsters flooded out of the labyrinths and attacked everyone. During the disaster, the monsters caused the most damage. Fortunately for humanity, the monsters were weak to the light of day. After the monsters disappeared, the nations learned that only places where the monsters overflowed were in the countries that had their labyrinths sealed. This led to one hypothesis, that one must keep hunting monsters on a regular basis or the labyrinth will overflow with monsters. However, that was not all they learned. The First Anglemore also led to a significant discovery. Cards of unknown use with their images on them were dropped by monsters on rare occasions. These cards are later known as monster cards. To use the cards, one must drop their blood on them. By believing strongly in the cards, the monsters would then get summoned and listen to every command of the user. The cards also had an unexpected surprise. During combat, the summoner takes no damage while the monster is summoned, because the summoned monster takes all the damage. This led to only one conclusion, that it was possible for ordinary people to explore the labyrinth. Maro visited the guild to register as an adventurer. The receptionist informed Maro of the requirements needed to register, and mentioned that he would need his guardian's consent if he was underage. When Maro told the receptionist that he had everything except for the card, the receptionist recommended he head to the upper floor where he could purchase one. Once on the upper level, Maro was greeted by a man named Shigeno, who was there to help him purchase his card. As they headed to the upper floor, Maro was mesmerized by the sight of numerous cards displayed behind a glass wall. After Shigeno secured a booth for them, he asked for Maro's name to address him properly. Before helping Maro purchase his first card, Shigeno provided more details about the cards and the rules for using them. He shared that summoned monsters could choose to disobey their master's orders, which frightened Maro. However, Shigeno reassured him that the monsters couldn't harm their masters. Since monsters have unique personalities, they have the will to choose what they want to do. Shigeno explained that if a monster was abandoned, the guild could reset the monster's levels and memories, making the card available to another user. However, even with a reset, the monster's personality would remain the same. After informing Maro that rebellious monsters make it difficult for the summoner to use them, Maro asked what happened to the most rebellious cards. Shigeno responded that they wouldn't do anything bad but would just have a lower price. After discussing monsters and cards, Shigeno asked Maro what card he planned to purchase and if he had enough money. Maro panicked and handed over the money, but Shigeno told him he could pay at the end before giving Maro the list of D-ranked cards. Maro became excited after seeing the cards. Female monster cards cost over 5 million yen, while unpopular cards cost around 1 million yen. When Maro told Shigeno he wanted to try his luck and asked for a card worth 1 million yen, Shigeno showed a worried expression and told Maro they indeed had a card worth 1 million yen. Shigeno explained that purchasing a card pack could give Maro a chance to obtain a rare card. But getting a rare card was like winning a lottery prize. Shigeno suggested Maro try his luck with the D-rank card since it offered a 30% chance, whereas the rare cards only gave a 1% chance. Shigeno could tell that Maro only had the budget for one card pack, and reminded him that if he couldn't draw a D-rank card, he wouldn't be able to register. Despite this, Maro was determined to take his chances. Seeing how Maro had saved up so much money to buy a card, Shigeno shared that the card packs they had were unwanted by adventurers. The popular and easy-to-use cards were placed on the shelf, but the cards that many didn't want were in the packs. Maro appreciated Shigeno's honesty but remained unfazed, and told Shigeno he had made up his mind. Seeing that he couldn't persuade Maro, Shigeno showed him their card packs, and told him he was free to pick whichever pack he wanted. One had a 30% chance of getting a D-ranked card, while the C rank had less than a 1% chance. The 70% were known to be trash, and 1 million yen would end up worthless. During the week, Maro worked 2 jobs, one at a supermarket and another at a moving company. Maro had never worked a job before and was scolded for making mistakes. He also had a hard time getting his parents to accept his decision, but after many discussions, Maro finally gained their permission. Maro doubted whether he could sacrifice another year to earn 1 million yen if he failed to get a D-rank card. After choosing his card pack, Shigeno told him to open it. Maro's cards were an F-ranked Goblin, an E-ranked Kobold, and a D-ranked QC. Seeing the D-rank card, Maro thought he could finally become an adventurer. Wanting to push his luck, Maro checked out the other cards he had. He finally saw a monster girl with a D rank but had mixed feelings since the monster was a ghoul. Seeing Maro's expression, Shigeno asked what was wrong. Maro, surprised, responded that there was no problem. Maro realized he was fortunate to obtain a monster girl, and that drawing a cute C-ranked monster girl was the limit of what he could wish for. After drawing his last 2 cards, Maro's eyes widened in disbelief as he drew a C-rank monster girl card named Zashiki Nobu. After purchasing his first summon card, Maro wondered how his friends would react once he showed them his monster girl card. Shota then surprised Maro and asked him why he was in such a good mood. Maro tried to feign ignorance, but Shota could tell something was up since Maro's grin already gave him away. When Maro was about to tell Shota the truth, they were suddenly interrupted by Yoichi. After greeting the two, Yoichi expressed how it was fate that led the 3 to meet up before school. When Shota asked Maro what he was about to say earlier, Maro decided not to reveal the truth and told Shota it was nothing. As the 3 were about to enter their classroom, they were curious about the noise inside. Maro was surprised to learn that another of his classmates had become an adventurer. IG and his new adventurer buddy couldn't wait to enter the labyrinth after school. Maro was shocked as he felt someone had beaten him to revealing they had become an adventurer. While Yoichi and Shota wondered what was going on with their friend, Maro shivered in fear of embarrassment at the thought of telling everyone he had become a hunter as well. Maro's mind was filled with scenarios where no one cared that he was an adventurer. Not wanting his fears to come true, Maro wondered what he should do. Shota then remarked that it wasn't a big deal to become a 1-star adventurer, which surprised Maro as he realized his cards still put him above Ono. Using his rare card, Maro vowed to become a 3-star adventurer no matter what before the year ended. After class, Maro went to the labyrinth. Upon arriving at the convenience store, Maro was shocked to see that it had more medical supplies and food than normal convenience stores. Many labyrinths take the shape of dungeon marts, and by going to the back of the dungeon mart, one would find the labyrinth entrance. As Maro finally saw what a labyrinth entrance looked like, he wondered what it was made of since it was just smoke. After touching the labyrinth entrance, Maro closed his eyes as he was suddenly engulfed in black smoke. Upon opening his eyes, he was amazed at what he saw. Seeing daylight, Maro assumed that inside the labyrinth was a different world. Based on the information given to Maro, the sun would always stay where it was, meaning it would always be noon in the labyrinth. If the labyrinth was evening, it would stay evening, and the same applied to the weather. Maro visited the labyrinth to summon Zashiki during the daytime. However, the environment was too hot. When Maro remembered to call his monster, he also recalled that each labyrinth has its own summoning limit, and a user could only summon 2 monsters at one time. Zashiki is known to be a god of fortune, but if abandoned, it would bring misfortune. Each card has 2 types of skills, inherent skills and acquired skills. In the case of Zashiki, she has the ability to give good or bad fortune to enemies and allies, as well as hiding and healing abilities. Zashiki's acquired skill is a simple offensive magic spell, but the problem is that both of her skills could also harm her. The first skill, Zero Existence, weakens Zashiki's abilities if she doesn't want to exist, preventing her from showing her true powers. The second skill, Closed Heart, means cards with this type of skill won't listen to their master's orders, and if forced, the ability would decline. Maro could tell that Zashiki was a problem but still had hope since she was a C-rank monster. Maro also knew that even if Zashiki wouldn't listen to him, she would not hesitate to defend herself in front of a monster. After summoning Zashiki, Maro was taken aback to see her squatting on the ground. Zashiki then approached Maro and asked him what he was looking at. Reminded of Sheno's words about a monster's personality, Maro did not expect Zashiki to have a delinquent attitude. Upon learning that Maro was her new master, Zashiki told Maro that he had acquired a problem monster. However, Maro's response surprised Zashiki. Maro told Zashiki that he knew she would be difficult to use, but after obtaining a rare card, he felt lucky to have her. Pointing at Maro, Zashiki liked his attitude and wondered how long it would last. As Zashiki vanished in front of Maro, he wondered if he had managed to get his feelings across to her. Maro then pulled out another card as he prepared to summon another monster girl. Ghouls and undead monsters appear in the labyrinth as devouring demons. Although the monster girl Maro acquired was a ghoul, he still thought of it as a pretty good card since it was ranked D. The ghoul is a living dead with congenital skills. With the ghoul's inherent skills, she can resist abnormal status but takes a hit on her intelligence, a passive skill that is active until the ghoul's head is destroyed. The other inherent skill is called corpse eating, which is the ability to eat corpses. By eating others, the ghoul would be able to heal herself of any damage she took from battling. Checking the ghoul's acquired skills, Maro liked that his monster girl has the skill of absolute order and sexual technique. However, Maro's problem was that his monster girl was a ghoul. After summoning Ghoul, Maro was surprised when he couldn't smell anything from her. From Maro's perspective, it was the biggest drawback for the undead. Seeing how perfect Ghoul's figure was, Maro still couldn't get over that the monster girl was a ghoul. Maro still didn't lose hope, hoping that one day Ghoul would evolve into a vampire. Maro then ordered Ghoul to follow him. However, Ghoul remained in one place as if she did not hear anything. Out of nowhere, Maro heard a noise which alarmed him. After turning and seeing Ghoul still in the same place, Maro later realized that Ghoul wouldn't move unless he gave an order. After giving the order and seeing Ghoul slowly following him, Maro could already tell that his training would be tough. While walking under the heat of the sun, Maro asked Zashiki if there were enemies around and if it was safe. When Zashiki asked why she had to answer Maro's question, she was surprised when Maro responded that he assumed they were friends. After ordering Ghoul to stop, Zashiki suddenly appeared in front of them. Zashiki then made it clear to Maro that she hates humans and that looking at Maro and Ghoul makes her want to vomit. After telling Maro that she will not help him, Zashiki reminded Maro again how she is a defective monster before vanishing. Seeing Zashiki's behavior, Maro wondered what her previous owner did to her. While wondering if he should summon QC, Maro opened a chocolate bar after drinking some water. As Maro was about to eat the chocolate bar, he was surprised when Zashiki suddenly appeared in front of him. Curious as to what Maro was about to eat, Zashiki asked him what it was. After explaining to Zashiki what a chocolate bar is, Maro asked if she wanted it. Zashiki tried to act differently, but seeing the chocolate bar up close, her eyes started to gleam. Believing that the chocolate bar was one of Maro's ploys, Zashiki told Maro that she's not going to fall for it. Realizing that persuading Zashiki was becoming difficult, Maro tried taking a bite of the chocolate bar. Enraged at Maro's actions, Zashiki decided to leave. Eating his chocolate bar, Maro was disappointed in himself for missing his chance but was still glad that he now knew what Zashiki likes. Meanwhile, Ghoul, who was standing behind Maro, was suddenly snatched by something. When Maro turned around, he was surprised that Ghoul was already being eaten by a wolf monster. While Ghoul was being pinned down by the wolf, a blast came out of nowhere and blasted one of the wolf's limbs. The blast came from Zashiki. After regaining his senses, Maro ordered Ghoul to fight back. Hearing the order, Ghoul's eyes widened and she immediately crawled towards the injured wolf. As Ghoul pinned the wolf down and ate it, Maro could not help but feel disgusted after witnessing Ghoul eating. Maro appreciated Zashiki's help and offered her a chocolate bar as a reward. Zashiki's eyes showed a happy reaction at first but immediately changed to her usual attitude. After accepting the chocolate bar, Zashiki told Maro not to get the wrong idea. Seeing how Zashiki really likes chocolate, Maro realized that he may need to prepare more sweets moving forward. Maro then approached Ghoul and ordered her to fight back whenever she got attacked by the enemy. Seeing Ghoul up close, Maro noticed that the bite mark the wolf caused had now vanished, which Maro realized was the effect of the corpse eating. Seeing how Zashiki was chowing down on the chocolate bar, Maro asked if it was delicious, which surprised Zashiki and she responded that it was nothing special. After swallowing the food, Zashiki turned around and told Maro that she would help him again if Maro gave her more candy. Maro laughed, realizing that giving her candy was all it took for Zashiki to follow him. As Maro looked forward to working with Zashiki, he extended his hand for a handshake. However, Zashiki suddenly swatted his hand. Zashiki then told Maro not to get carried away before vanishing again. Staring at his hand, Maro thought that he would get along with his monsters better than he thought. Back at school, Maro and his friends exuded a competitive aura. The three played a game which resulted in Maro losing. As his friends teased him, Maro was frustrated, remembering Eiji and how they used to be a group of 4. Forgetting about Eiji, Maro was now determined to look for another partner. However, during one of their classes, Maro couldn't believe that he was the only one without a partner. Hearing how his classmates pitied him, Maro blamed his luck for losing the game and ending up alone. When a student named Narakin raised his voice and asked if anyone needed a teammate, Maro scowled, as he did not like Narakin for hanging out with Eiji. When Narakin saw Maro, the two exchanged disappointed looks. When Maro noticed Eiji giving him a teasing look, Maro hated the feeling. Narakin slapped Maro's back, reminding him not to get in his way. Maro could already tell that the day would not be his best. After class, Maro felt pathetic. The reason why Narakin acted so cocky towards Maro was because Maro was at the bottom of the cast. Narakin could only bully the weak and feared those stronger than him like Ono and Eiji. Maro was now even more determined to get to the top and get back at those who had looked down on him. When Yoichi and Shota invited Maro to go to karaoke, Maro declined and left the two. Maro returned to the labyrinth and planned to try summoning a new card. The card Maro was holding was the monster named QC. It is a Scottish dog fairy that protects fairies. According to legend, QC can move silently. Checking through QC's skills, Maro was happy to know that one of the skills was obedience to the master. However, Maro's problem was that QC's weakness was cowardice. Cowardice as a weakness shows as extremely timid and battle-averse, with status halved in battle. Maro did not want to think ahead of himself and wondered if QC was good at fighting. After Maro summoned the monster QC, he was immediately greeted by it. Amazed at how big QC was, Maro was speechless and forgot to respond to QC. After regaining his senses, Maro responded to QC and then proceeded to summon Ghoul. Wondering if Ghoul remembered his orders from the day before, Maro asked Ghoul to say what he had said yesterday. As Ghoul repeated Maro's words one by one, Maro was happy since Ghoul remembered everything. Maro then asked Ghoul to forget what he had said and follow his new orders. After giving Ghoul her new orders, Maro wondered if it was enough but was very glad that Ghoul had a good memory. As the group was about to begin, Maro asked QZ to search around. QZ, surprised, hesitantly told Maro that it could scout. Sensing doubt towards Ki, Maro still counted on him to do the job. As QZ used his nose to smell danger, Maro checked if Ghoul was following him. Maro was relieved to learn that Ghoul was following his orders. However, Maro only hoped that his orders didn't contradict each other. After some time, QZ found the scent of enemies and immediately warned Maro. Nervous, Maro knew that he would be fine since he had given Ghoul the new orders. Maro assumed that QZ would be dead weight but still hoped that it would fight back. The initial battle power for a D-rank monster is less than 50. Knowing that the first floor power was just around 10 to 20, Maro felt confident facing his enemies. When Maro finally encountered his enemies, which were goblins riding a wolf, he was surprised when the goblins suddenly initiated the attack. Ghoul sensed danger and charged at the goblin in an instant. However, she suddenly stopped, which puzzled Maro. Ghoul stood still while the goblins hit her with their clubs. Wondering what happened to his orders, Maro considered if his orders contradicted each other. Seeing Ghoul in danger, Maro immediately ordered Kusi to save Ghoul. However, Kusi was too afraid to move. Maro shouted at Kusi, which ended up making Kusi cover its ears in fear. Maro felt disappointed, as he had assumed that Kusi would at least try to fight back. Seeing his two monsters not fighting back, Maro wondered what he should do next. Left with no other options, Maro decided to give up on Kyusei and summoned Zashiki. He immediately begged Zashiki to help Ghoul. However, she refused. Stuck in despair, Maro remembered that Zashiki only works if given candy. When Maro offered sweets to Zashiki, she immediately turned around and told him that she was not in the mood. Frustrated, Maro took a baton out of his bag. He then rushed toward the goblin and hit it right on the head. However, instead of causing damage, Maro only made the goblin angrier. Frightened, Maro ordered Ghoul to kill the wolves one by one, starting with the one biting her leg. As Ghoul was busy devouring the wolves, Maro was left to deal with the two goblins. He was able to protect himself from the goblins' attack but ended up letting go of his weapon. When the two goblins were about to pounce on Maro, they were suddenly killed. Surprised, Maro realized that Zashiki had taken care of the goblins. Turning around to check on Ghoul, Maro felt relieved after seeing Ghoul all healed up. Exhausted, Maro finally experienced what being an adventurer really was, and wondered if he could continue being one. When Zashiki approached him, he thanked her for the help. As Maro was about to give Zashiki some sweets, he was surprised when she suddenly grabbed his collar and asked him why he fought. When Maro responded, Zashiki told him that his answer was wrong. She then asked why he tried to save a ghoul and put himself in harm's way. Zashiki wanted to know why Maro risked his life for expendable cards. Maro responded that he just wanted to buy time until Ghoul could recover, and that he was not in any danger. Although Ghoul was expendable in Zashiki's eyes, for Maro, Ghoul was important to him. After swatting away Zashiki's hand, he told her that he was tired and planned to head home. Zashiki then told Maro to stop, as she still hadn't received any candy as her reward. Speechless, Maro left the labyrinth after his first fight. Arriving home, Maro was greeted by his younger sister. When she asked what happened in the labyrinth, Maro confidently shared how he killed a lot of monsters. Amazed by her brother, Maro's sister asked if he had already cleared the labyrinth. After telling her that he hadn't cleared it yet, Maro's sister left to watch the Monkoro game. Upon opening the door, she was approached by their dog named Maru. Jealous, Maro tried calling for Maru's attention. However, Maru turned around and ignored him. After Maro was greeted by his mother, she went ahead and reheated the food since Maro still hadn't eaten. Maro's parents knew that he wanted to be an adventurer. Although they weren't happy with his decision, they gave him permission to continue after seeing that he was serious. After reheating the food, Maro's mother told him to eat his dinner. After some time, Maro's father also arrived. Seeing Maru approach him, he tried interacting with Maru but ended up receiving the same treatment as Maro did. While Maru was being petted by Maro's sister, Maro's attention was called as the Monkoro game was starting. Monkoro, or Monster Coliseum, is a new pastime that has emerged since the appearance of the Labyrinth. It is a popular program that pits monsters summoned by adventurers against each other. Seeing how the monsters on the other side were too many, Maro's sister wondered if the fight could still be considered one-on-one. Maro explained that it was Fulcus, the Devil Knight's skill, which is allowed. Seeing the monsters fight each other, it was then announced on television how the user Kumao takes Fulcus as a name card. When a normal card dies, it disappears, but a named card leaves behind data about itself in the form of a soul card even after death. By consuming a card of the same race as the named card, they can be resurrected with their status, personalities, and appearances intact. However, a card used for resurrecting a named card can no longer be initialized as it loses its value as an asset. There are two cases in which adventurers name their cards. Either the card has skills that are very hard to lose, or the adventurer has grown attached to that card. Maro wondered if a day would come when he would have to name his cards as well. Maro had just arrived at school and greeted his friends with a good morning. Before becoming an adventurer, Ig was also Maro's friend. Since it was about time for club activities to start, Shota asked the three which clubs they planned on joining. Shota only wanted to join clubs that didn't involve sports, while Eiji and Maro did not feel like joining any. Since the two had no plans to join a club, Shota wondered if they were working part-time jobs. Some shared their interest in getting a part-time job but felt that they were not yet ready. When they learned that it was a good experience to get a part-time job at least once in high school, Ig suggested becoming an adventurer. The three were speechless for a few seconds, then assumed that Eiji was joking and shared how they didn't have the money and were frightened by what might happen inside the labyrinth. When Ig was asked if he was interested in becoming an adventurer, he responded that he wasn't. Shota then changed the topic and asked the three who the prettiest girl in their class was. The group unanimously voted for a student named Shinomiya as the number one. After deciding on the first, the group started to suggest who the second one might be. Yoichi liked a student named Sakurai, while Higashino preferred an older student named Osato. When Maro suggested the name Ushikura, both Yoichi and Shota immediately assumed that Maro liked women with large breasts. Maro tried to justify his choice, but the two were stuck with the idea that Maro liked large-breasted women. When it was Eiji's turn, he did not give a name but just stared at them. When the others assumed that Eiji was into the same gender, Ig made it clear that it was not the case and that he just couldn't think of a number two. After thinking for a while, the others wondered if Shinomiya was his type or something. It was then shared among the four that Eiji was from the same junior high school as Shinomiya. After teasing Eiji that he was into Gyaru-type girls, the four made it clear that they didn't need to fight over women and that their friendship would not easily be broken by that. After hanging out, Maro left the room. While walking in the hall, he was surprised when he saw Ushikura. Seeing Ushikura's distressed look, Maro asked what was wrong. After learning that Ushikura lost her keys, Maro realized that Ushikura would be in trouble and decided to offer help. Seeing Ushikura's embarrassed look, Maro told her to just think of it as repaying a favor. Ushikura then remembered that it was Maro whom they had helped find his lost entrance examination voucher on the day of the entrance exam. Maro was glad that Ushikura remembered and thanked them for the help. Ushikura assumed that they had the wrong guy that day since Maro didn't look happy at the time. As the two continued their conversation in the hall, Maro noticed something near a locker and realized that it was Ushikura's missing key. After getting back the key, Ushikura told Maro that they were now even and hoped that Maro would talk to her more in the future. As the two had a pleasant conversation, Eiji, who was listening to their conversation, became mad. The next day, Maro noticed that his classmates were all in one place. Nishida then revealed to Maro how Eiji actually became an adventurer. Seeing Ushikura talking to Eiji, Maro was left speechless. After some time, Maro approached Eiji and told him how surprised he was upon learning that he had become an adventurer. When Maro asked Eiji why he didn't tell him, Eiji's attitude changed and he told Maro not to speak to him so casually. Seeing Maro's puzzled look, Eiji just smiled at Maro as he continued to talk with the others, alongside Ushikura. Maro felt pissed, but he also knew that Eiji was an amazing person since he didn't give up as a mob character and took on the challenge and rose to the occasion. Seeing Eiji being surrounded by his classmates and being admired, Maro felt jealous and vowed to also become an adventurer. Maro then opened his eyes and went to school. Seeing Maro yawn, Nishida asked Maro if he was busy with his part-time job. Maro shared how he was recently assigned to train new recruits all at once. The two felt that Maro's job sounded like a lot of work and were not sure if they could do it themselves. They then asked if there was a girl, and if she was pretty. When Maro responded that there were indeed girls, Shota immediately became excited and asked what they looked like. After Maro shared his opinion of the girls, the two wondered if the girls Maro mentioned were inside an erotic game. Maro then made it clear that it was a real job. Although he was always accompanied by girls, Maro shared how he had a hard time since each of the girls had their own problems. Still exhausted, Maro decided to sleep in the infirmary and asked the two to tell the teacher for him. Arriving at the infirmary, Maro made his presence known and asked if he could borrow a bed. A student who was already inside the infirmary told Maro that there were no nurses yet and suggested that he take a break on his own. Upon seeing that the student was Shinomiya, Maro took Shinomiya's suggestion and lay down in one of the beds. While lying on the bed, Maro could not get any sleep at all. Maro wondered what kind of situation he was in, as he couldn't believe that he was all alone with Shinomiya. As the clock kept on ticking, Maro felt pathetic since he chose to become an adventurer so that he could speak to girls without freaking out. However, he was still bad at it. As Maro was so deep in his thoughts, he was surprised when Shinomiya suddenly shouted. While laughing, Shinomiya asked Maro if that was his real name since it was too strange. After explaining to Shinomiya his nickname and revealing his true name, Shinomiya thought that Maro's name sounded familiar, which Maro accurately guessed that Shinomiya was referring to a painter in the Edo period. After sharing the secret behind how he was named, Maro was asked by Shinomiya if she could call him by his nickname. After receiving confirmation from Maro, Shinomiya asked him if he had a part-time job. When Maro confirmed it again, Shinomiya then remembered seeing Maro working at a supermarket once. Seeing how tough the work was, Shinomiya asked Maro why he was working so hard every day. Maro told Shinomiya that he had a goal in mind and was saving up money. Maro had never felt anything when he had never been in the center of the class. But when Eiji became popular, he was surprised and decided to try and also change. After telling Shinomiya how he was still trying to achieve his goal, Shinomiya smiled and told Maro how cool he was. Inside the labyrinth, Kuzi warned Maro of nearby goblins and a wolf. Maro patted Kuzi's head and praised her for the warning. When Maro asked Kuzi if she could try to fight, Kuzi was hesitant and told Maro she was still not ready. Maro understood Kuzi's feelings and told her he would switch her with Guler once they got closer to the enemies. Ashamed by her cowardice, Kuzi apologized to Maro. Kuzi was surprised when Maro did not get mad and instead encouraged her to continue progressing at her own pace. Maro's words encouraged Kuzi, and she decided to continue scouting with enthusiasm. Seeing Kuzi and Maro's interaction, Zashiki sarcastically commented on Maro's kindness. Zashiki then asked Maro if he was trying to be a benevolent master by pretending to care about his cards. Zashiki mentioned how it was much better to buy a stronger card than to train a weak one from the ground up. Maro did not believe Zashiki's words and responded that Kuzi is plenty useful. Zashiki assumed Maro was talking about Kuzi's scouting skills, and commented that a lower-ranked card could also scout. Maro told Zashiki he doesn't believe in the idea of disposing of useless cards but rather in training and cultivating them. Bringing up the topic of sweets, Maro assumed he was the only master who'd given the rebellious Zashiki sweets. Annoyed by Maro's comment, Zashiki vanished in front of him. Running in fear, Kusi reported to Maro that they were getting close to the enemies and asked him to switch her out. Maro immediately switched Kusi to Guler. As Guler assessed her surroundings, she let her guard down since they were not in combat. Maro then debriefed Guler on what they were up against. After informing Guler that she could use any tool at her disposal, Maro asked Guler what they should do next. After a moment of silence, Guler suggested that situation number 27 could be used against their enemies. Using Guler's slingshot, she would try to get in range and take out the Battle Wolf. After the Battle Wolf, Guler planned to pick up the bullets and move on to the next group. Regardless of whether the enemy was dead or not, Guler would then equip the stun baton and attack them. Maro was impressed with Guler's strategy. After handing Guler the tools, Maro reminded her to equip the helmet cam and record everything. After Guler left, Zashiki noticed the huge difference in Guler and wondered if she was really a ghoul. Maro revealed how he trained Guler, achieving quite a feat. After Maro told Zashiki that Guler can't do anything but follow orders, he explained that what Guler displayed earlier was just her repeating a combination of simple commands. Although Guler can't come up with a scenario by herself, Maro gave Guler choices so she could think for herself and then learn from it. Maro then revealed Guler's card, which surprised Zashiki when she saw that Guler had learned 2 new skills. Boasting in front of Zashiki, Maro was told not to be cocky and that she would respect him once he cleared a single labyrinth. While Maro and Zashiki were busy arguing, they didn't notice that Guler had already finished off the enemies. After informing Maro that the battle was over, Guler handed Maro some magic stones. When a monster in the labyrinth is defeated, the monsters drop black ores called magic stones. After being asked for the battle report, Guler told Maro that she first tried taking out the Battle Wolf but accidentally hit the goblin instead. Guler then moved to the second stage, which was reloading the slingshot. However, the Battle Wolf suddenly ran at her. Based on situation number 4, Guler stopped what she was doing and switched to close combat mode. She then used the stun baton and her skills to annihilate the enemy and returned to Maro. After praising Guler's hard work, Maro switched her out. Maro was frustrated when things weren't going according to plan. Although nothing bad happened since they were in a low-ranking labyrinth, Maro couldn't help but wonder what would happen if they moved to a tougher labyrinth. Labyrinths are conquered by defeating their lord. The lords are usually a rank higher than the regular monsters that appear in the labyrinth. Additionally, the labyrinth gives the lords some sort of buff to increase their chances of winning. Despite the fact that none of Maro's cards have a special skill, having a D-ranked card like Guler makes it possible for Maro to conquer the current labyrinth. Maro then summoned Kusi and ordered her to search for the stairs to the next level while searching for enemies. After informing Kusi that they would return home once they found the stairs, Zashiki made fun of Maro's decision and asked if he would ever be able to beat the labyrinth. The two later had an argument about a book that Zashiki was reading. Back at home, Maro thought to himself that calling Kusi and Zashiki a force to be reckoned with was out of the question. However, Maro was able to manage the two and made improvements. After finishing his plans, Maro double-checked the list of vanished persons. Although the guild sells both maps and strategy guides, Maro decided not to get one. The first reason was that he didn't have enough spare cash to buy information. The second was that Maro figured that getting first-hand experience in an F-rank labyrinth was a much better option. That said, any fee in public information was fair game for Maro, especially when it came to information about vanished persons. People who go into the labyrinth and never come back are called vanished persons. The fact that people can end up missing is a testament to how dangerous labyrinths can be, no matter the rank. Nevertheless, in a low-ranking labyrinth, the rate of vanished persons is extremely low. After hearing a knock on his door, Maro was told by his sister that his bath was ready. The next day, Maro laid out the things he needed for the labyrinth. When Maro's sister finally woke up, she saw Maro's tools and asked if he was going inside the labyrinth again. When his sister asked if she could join, Maro immediately told her that he was not going to do that since it was too dangerous. Maro then revealed that bringing a civilian to the labyrinth is not allowed and could result in losing one's license. Maro's sister expressed how she loved him but thought how boring he was. However, after becoming an adventurer, she now sees Maro as a cool person, which makes her happy. As Maro was about to leave, his sister told him to wait by the door before heading out. After putting on his shoes, his sister hurriedly followed him and gave him a lucky charm. Although it was not from the shrine, Maro's sister hoped it would work as she made it along with their mother. Maro was speechless for a moment and then told her to look forward to his stories about the labyrinth. As the two parted, Maro was now more determined to conquer the labyrinth. After learning the location of the stairs to the lowest level, Maro immediately headed there. After 5 hours, Maro and Kusi arrived at the stairs. Before entering, Maro suggested to Kyuzi that they take a short break. Zashiki demanded sweets from Maro, claiming she was tired even though she hadn't done anything. After eating the sweets, Zashiki commented on their flavor and asked for the chef who made them. Seeing Zashiki's behavior, Maro could tell she had been reading too much cooking manga. While eating his sweets, Maro appreciated the beauty of the surroundings, a perk of being an adventurer. When Zashiki asked for another sweet, Maro felt disrespected and told her there were no refills. When Kyuzi approached Maro with a frightened look, he knew she wanted to be switched out. After praising Kyuzi's hard work, Maro switched her with Guler. After confirming with Guler that she was ready, Maro stepped onto the stairs. Upon arriving at the last level, Maro felt chills and noticed a change in the atmosphere. Detecting a smell similar to raw sewage, he decided to go back but was surprised to see the stairs had disappeared. Dumbfounded, Maro wondered if it was a last-level gimmick. Zashiki then appeared and snapped Maro back to his senses. Upon learning that the level they were on was not ordinary, Maro regretted entering it, wishing he had chosen a different one. Zashiki, puzzled by Maro's words, told him he wasn't strong enough to detect a lord capable of isolating a level like this. When Zashiki informed Maro that he would die, Maro was filled with fear. They were now dealing with an irregular encounter, a nightmare taking the form of a fairy tale figure, a unique monster that overtakes the labyrinth's original lord and waits patiently for its prey. Frustrated, Maro remembered the distress signal embedded in the adventurer's license. However, he was shocked to see an error message when he tried to use it. Learning that the whole space was isolated, Maro wondered what his next step should be since the distress signal was his last resort. Fearing he had no choice but to face the irregular encounter himself, Maro was surprised when Zashiki handed him his lucky charm. Calming himself, Maro followed Zashiki's suggestion to switch Guler with Kyuzi for better spotting. After summoning Kyuzi, Maro informed her they were facing an irregular encounter and ordered her to find it. With one sniff, Kyuzi warned Maro of a different smell nearby. Zashiki then used her magic to kill what turned out to be just a rat. She explained that the rat was the irregular encounter's familiar, and seeing a rat was a bad sign as they never stopped spawning. As the group decided to move and look for the irregular encounter, Kyuzi informed Maro she smelled blood nearby. When Maro checked a bush, he was shocked to see a horribly killed human. He thought the irregular encounter was using an illusion, but Zashiki told him it was a real corpse, and that the boy's soul was trapped inside the labyrinth. Maro found it hard to believe, as laws prevent children from entering labyrinths. Zashiki then mentioned Angol Moi, causing Maro to ask how she knew how long it had been since the last one. When Zashiki reminded him that time doesn't pass in the labyrinth, Maro became confused, remembering the last Angol Moi was 20 years ago. Time and place became distorted in his head. Remembering he was an adventurer, Maro realized the body in front of him was indeed a real corpse. After vomiting, Zashiki handed him a bottle of water. Wondering what they should do next, Zashiki offered to defeat the irregular encounter herself for a handsome reward. Realizing that Zashiki was trying to cheer him up, Maro did not take the offer since it would cost him a whole bunch of sweets if she succeeded. Zashiki, looking forward to bankrupting Maro, who she disliked, was disappointed. Maro responded that her plan was impossible because she was stuck with him. While killing off rat monsters, Zashiki suddenly asked Maro if he had a girl he liked. Unsure why Zashiki was interested in his personal life, Maro responded that he had a crush on someone. Zashiki became excited and asked Maro more questions about his crush. As they walked through the dense level, Maro saw another corpse. However, after seeing the corpse's face, Maro couldn't help but imagine himself in the corpse's place. Rattled, Maro bumped into Zashiki, not realizing a rat monster was near them. After taking care of the rat, Zashiki continued asking Maro about the girl he liked. While talking about Maro's crush, Zashiki accused him of being a pervert since he hadn't asked his crush out yet. During the conversation, a corpse impaled on a tree suddenly laughed. Maro heard the laugh and reacted with anger. Seeing Zashiki without a reaction, Maro regained his senses when Kyuzi called his name. Maro assumed that what he heard was an auditory illusion or part of the labyrinth's gimmick using the laughter from children's souls. After Maro cleared his head, he immediately apologized to both Zashiki and Kyuzi. Maro then continued discussing his crush. He revealed that becoming an adventurer was just part of his plan to get closer to his crush. Maro shared that he planned to ask his crush out on Christmas and asked the two to keep it a secret. After learning Maro's plans, Zashiki told him that if he died before Christmas, she wouldn't care. Maro felt nervous and told Zashiki that her words weren't funny, especially given the situation they were in. Zashiki reassured him that it was just a joke and that he wouldn't die as long as she was around. Finding comfort in Zashiki's words, Maro was then alerted by Kyuzi that the Lord was close to them and that they would encounter each other in a few minutes. After giving the report, Kyuzi apologized to Maro and asked him to switch her back since she couldn't be of any help. Seeing Kyuzi trembling in fear, Maro patted her on the head and told her that she didn't have to apologize. Despite Kyuzi's frightened behavior, Maro was very appreciative of her for leading them into harm's way. Hearing Maro's words, Kusi teared up, ashamed at how pathetic she felt. She cried, wishing she were more heroic. Maro understood Kusi's behavior, recognizing it as common to both humans and monsters. He recalled his own fear of talking back to Nariken. In a way, Maro admitted he also had a cowardly streak. Zashiki teased Maro for being kind and insinuated that he would rather get a strong card than train a weak one from the ground up. Maro smiled and told Zashiki that he was going to keep Kusi and swore to enhance and rank her up. After hearing the sound of a flute, Maro immediately put on a mask. As Zashiki stood behind him, Maro summoned Guler and asked her to put on a mask as well. Piecing together the clues from the rat familiars, the corpses of children, and the sound of a flute, Maro realized who they were up against, the Pied Piper of Hamelin. While hiding behind the trees, Maro ordered Guler to fire. After firing the slingshot, Maro was shocked to see the attack deflected by a barrier. As the Piper looked at Maro's location, he stopped playing the flute and faced them. Maro ordered Guler to shoot again, but the attacks were still deflected. After seeing their attacks blocked, Maro guessed that the barrier had no connection to the flute being played and was always active to protect the Piper. Spreading his arms out, the Piper recited a story. He then placed the flute near his mouth and asked Carnival Zero to listen to him. As the Piper played his flute, all the rats behind him immediately attacked Maro and Guler. Seeing the incoming rats, Maro ordered Guler to lift him up. When a rat was about to bite Guler, Maro took out a spray can and sprayed it everywhere. Maro's move turned out to be quite effective since the rats hit by the spray got knocked out. However, there were still more rats nearby. Seeing the second wave of rats, Maro became frightened as he couldn't see an end to them. While the Piper controlled the rats using his flute, Maro was fighting them back by using the rat repellent. With the Piper's words, the rats suddenly stopped and retreated. Maro wondered why the rats ran away, but when he saw them jumping into the river, he guessed that the Piper was trying to bring the story to life. As Maro guessed the Piper's next attack, they stood still while the Piper played his flute and released a magical tune. However, when the Piper opened his eyes, he was puzzled to see Guler and Maro still standing. Seeing the earplugs on Guler's ears, the Piper felt disrespected and became angry. Maro then threw the rat repellent at the Piper to distract him and grabbed the slingshot. After throwing the slingshot to Guler, Maro ordered her to shoot the can. As the Piper was covered with smoke, Maro wondered if they had succeeded. However, what they achieved only made the Piper angrier. No longer tolerating Maro's actions, the Piper's flute suddenly turned into a scythe. Filled with anger, the Piper threatened Maro, saying he would slice his head off. Meanwhile, as the Piper was facing Maro, Zashiki took the opportunity to do a sneak attack on him. Unfortunately, the Piper was able to dodge the attack. Disappointed that she missed, Zashiki was still pleased since she found out the Piper's weakness. As Zashiki alerted Maro, he realized that the Piper could only put up the barrier if he had the flute. Maro then ordered Guler to proceed with Phase 3 and attack. Using a baton, Guler vigorously attacked the Piper. Blocking and evading Guler's attacks, the Piper lured her into a dangerous situation. Unfortunately for him, he received serious damage first before cutting Guler's head off. After Zashiki blasted a hole in the Piper's chest, Maro's legs gave out and he wondered if they had finally bested the Piper. Relieved that the fight was over, Maro was then told that he had dropped his lucky charm again. However, unbeknownst to the three, the Piper was still alive and stood behind Zashiki. Not noticing the Piper's presence, Maro witnessed the Piper attacking Zashiki and slicing his lucky charm in the process. As Zashiki turned around, she showed a sad expression. However, she was saved by Guler, who ended up getting sliced in two. As Zashiki clenched her fist in anger, the Piper smiled menacingly. He regrettably missed his target but was still happy that Guler was hit instead. Enraged, Zashiki threw multiple blasts toward the Piper. Unfortunately, Zashiki's attacks missed as the Piper vanished in front of them. Surprised by the Piper's sudden disappearance, Maro then realized that the Piper had teleported, making it look like he was hiding. Zashiki told Maro to go to Guler. As Maro held Guler's upper body, he kept reassuring her that everything would be fine. Seeing how bad the damage was, Maro tried feeding Guler a rat to restore her health. After eating the rat, Guler's upper body slowly connected itself to the other half. When Guler tried to move, Maro immediately told her that she was not fit to move yet. When the Piper started to tell a story again, a blast of magical notes came out of the hole in his body after he mentioned the supper of the lamb. As the magical notes got close to Zashiki, she noticed that one of the notes had a mouth and was trying to bite her. When Zashiki defended herself by shooting down the note, Maro noticed a child appear after the note was defeated. As the Piper boasted about his organic sounds, Zashiki became enraged and shot multiple magic blasts at the Piper again. After blocking the attack with his flute, the Piper counterattacked with the same move, blasting magical notes from his body. Zashiki immediately moved away and asked Maro what they should do next. As Maro wondered about their next move, Guler asked Maro to give her an order. Suddenly, Maro felt something in his pocket. He was surprised to see Kusi's card glowing. Maro praised Guler for her hard work and told her to leave the rest to them. Guler, who still wanted to fight, accepted Maro's orders and rested. When Maro summoned Kusi, the surrounding trees trembled. As the piper became puzzled about what was happening, Kusi appeared, growling with her teeth bared. Seeing Kusi angry, Maro saw hope in her and started their counterattack. Due to Kusi's awakening, her obedience and cowardice skills turned into loyalty and heroism. Kusi's past was filled with insults. Her previous master insulted her when she killed a monster near him and splattered its blood on him. Afraid to respond, Kusi was told how useless she was. When she promised her master that she would do better, he gave her a condition. She had to conquer the floor by herself. Kusi was left with no choice but to follow orders. After some time, Kusi returned to her master all bloodied. However, he was only disgusted by her injuries. Kusi was shocked to hear her master say he regretted buying her. She was heartbroken when her previous master told her that he no longer needed her. Before Maro got trapped in the last level, Zashiki told Kusi that she didn't have to force herself to follow Maro's orders. Although they didn't know what Maro's plans were, Zashiki reassured Kusi that they would be there for her and asked her to just relax a little. When Kusi accidentally stepped on Guler's feet, she immediately apologized. Afraid that Guler would hit her, Kusi was surprised when Guler patted her instead. When Maro understood Kusi's condition and praised her for leading them, Kusi no longer wanted to lose more people and decided to protect them at all costs. Witnessing Kusi showing her courageous side, the piper became amused. Kusi initiated the fight, but unfortunately her surprise attack was blocked. The piper counterattacked, but due to Kusi's speed he was unable to land the attack and even received damage when Kusi attacked him again. When Kusi saw the magical notes, she immediately moved away. As the magical notes were about to hit her, she was protected by Zashiki, who blasted the magical notes away. As the two summoned monsters combined their might to face the piper, Maro sensed something bad was about to happen and ordered them to stop the piper immediately. While fighting off both Kusi and Zashiki, the piper was also telling a story. When he mentioned the Pied Piper of Hamelin, extreme noise rained down upon Maro and his summons. Although Maro's card barrier was still active, his ears were still ringing. Maro then remembered that Kusi was not wearing any earbuds and immediately looked for her. However, he was too late as blood was visible from Kusi's ears. Maro then saw Zashiki drop to the ground. Wondering what happened to Zashiki, Maro was shocked to see blood on Zashiki's eyes and legs. As the piper stood behind Maro, he tried to end Maro's life. Suddenly, the piper's arms were cut off. Puzzled, Maro then saw Kusi standing up. As Maro wondered how Kusi could still move, the piper realized that due to Kusi's hero skill, she was able to move again. The piper laughed and told Maro that he would waive his fee once, but promised that Maro would pay next time. Before thanking Maro for being a splendid customer, the piper vowed that he would hunt Maro to the ends of the earth every time they met. The piper's head was then blown away, ending their fight. As Maro saw his reward, he immediately lay down due to exhaustion. Zashiki and Kusi were worried about Maro. Zashiki kept reminding Maro of the reward after defeating the irregular encounter. Maro then told the two that he had a much better reward for them, which made Zashiki skeptical. When Maro revealed that he planned on giving them names, the two were surprised and asked if he even knew what that meant. Maro responded that he knew what naming meant. Naming a card means that the user can no longer reset the card, but in exchange the card can be revived. Maro received a reminder from Shigeno that a card like Zashiki would lose her value as an extra life card if he named her. However, after their fight with the irregular encounter, Maro knew that he could count on his summons. For Zashiki Warashi, Maro named her Renka. For Kusi, she was given the name Yuki. Lastly, Maro named Guler Eliza. While Yuki was thankful to Maro for giving her a name, Renka expressed how annoyed she was to be stuck taking care of a newbie master. Maro then noticed a chest beside him and assumed it was the labyrinth reward. Renka reminded Maro not to get ahead of himself, and Maro apologized. After receiving a good luck blessing from Renka, Maro opened the chest reward for the labyrinth. Maro and Yuki did not expect the reward to be only a potion and a magic stone. Maro wanted the potion to be appraised but assumed it wasn't worth much since it was a one-time use item. Renka was enraged as she wanted the chest to be filled with gold and silver treasures. Although they had a hard time conquering the labyrinth, Maro expected the reward to be simple, since they were in an F-ranked labyrinth. Despite receiving a low-level reward, Maro was not disappointed since he gained something that money couldn't buy. After the life-threatening incident, Maro returned to his home guild. He reported how he subjugated an irregular encounter and asked for the rewards to be appraised. After handing over the rewards, Maro was told that the appraisal would take some time and that he should wait and take a seat nearby. Maro still couldn't believe that his first labyrinth subjugation had an irregular encounter. Remembering how the piper still moved despite having a hole in his chest, made Maro assume that the piper was an undead, like Eliza. However, what puzzled Maro was why the Piper committed suicide. Maro guessed that the Piper was afraid of Yuki since she wasn't very affected by the Piper's attacks and proved to be very dangerous against him. Judging by the Piper's reaction, Maro knew there was something more to it. Whatever it was, Maro needed to do more testing to find out. Maro's name was suddenly called. When he looked to see who was calling, he was surprised to see Shigeno. Shigeno praised Maro for clearing his first labyrinth and dealing with an irregular encounter. Maro acted humble in front of Shigeno. However, Shigeno told Maro that what happened during the irregular encounters wasn't a miracle but the fruits of Maro's labor. After Shigeno informed Maro that he would be helping with the appraisal, he asked Maro to follow him into a private room to discuss the items in more detail. After Shigeno returned the reward items Maro had obtained in the labyrinth, he explained that the potion was called Panacea. The potion can be used for all sorts of things, such as beautifying treatments or healing injuries and illnesses, and it is proven to always be in high demand. But since the supply was also quite high, the bottle Maro picked up was worth 10,000 yen. Regarding the magic stone, Shigeno informed Maro that the guild buys white magic stones for a high price, estimated at 60,000 yen. However, the red magic stone that dropped after defeating the irregular encounter was a different matter. Maro was surprised when Shigeno mentioned that the red magic stone was special and worth around 1,000,000 yen. Shocked at how expensive the red magic stone was, Shigeno explained that they also factored in the risk involved in obtaining it. Maro froze upon learning that the red magic stones in a C or D ranked labyrinth could be worth up to 100 million to 1,000,000,000 yen. After appraising the flute, the guild determined that it was Hamlin's flute. Irregular encounters are extremely rare, but when defeated, they leave behind a magic tool that was part of themselves. Realizing that the flute was more like a trophy, Shigeno informed Maro that the item's performance was also unrivaled. Maro was surprised when Shigeno told him that the flute had the ability for spatial transfer. Maro assumed he could teleport anywhere he wanted, but was immediately corrected by Shigeno, who explained that the user needed to visit the location at least once before teleporting. Shigeno was impressed by the flute since most spatial transfer magic tools are limited to one-time use, but the flute had no limits. After informing Maro that the object left by the irregular encounter could only be used by the person who defeated it, Shigeno mentioned that the guild could still technically buy it from Maro. However, Shigeno said that Maro could keep the item for himself. Since drops from irregular encounters are quite rare, Shigeno warned Maro to always be vigilant as someone might try to take the item by force. Scared of what might happen, Maro was given a solution, converting physical items into cards. After requesting the item be turned into a card, Maro still couldn't believe it cost him 1,000,000 yen. Upon arriving at school, Maro greeted his classmates but only received a cold shoulder. As Maro had become accustomed to the treatment he received at school, he overheard that Ono had already defeated 2 labyrinths. Seeing Iji and Ono talking, Maro noticed that Ono seemed a little less sparkling than before. When Maro heard a commotion coming from his friend's table, he approached them and asked why they were yelling. Shota expressed his disappointment upon learning that the woman he liked was only in second place, while Yoichi shared his idea that succubi were the best. As the two ended up agreeing that Elvenirs were the best, Maro was asked what kind of girls he liked. As Maro thought of a girl, he smiled as his head filled with thoughts of Renka. When Maro shared that he liked Zashiki Warashi, Shota wondered if such a monster was in the ranking. After learning that Zashiki Warashi wasn't in the ranking, the two wondered if something was up with Maro, and if he chose Zashiki Warashi for her luck or something. When Shota gave Maro better options, Maro agreed but told them that Zashiki Warashi just sprung to mind. Speechless, Shota and Yoichi asked Maro if something had happened since he was becoming more mature. Shota trembled, assuming that Maro was hitting it off with the female part-timer he had mentioned before. Maro smiled and told the two that the situation was kind of similar. After hearing Maro's response, the two were relieved as they accurately guessed that Maro still didn't have a girlfriend. Maro was a little disappointed that he couldn't come up with a convincing lie since his friends knew him too well. Out of nowhere, Shinomiya approached Maro and his friends and asked what they were talking about. After greeting everyone good morning, Shinomiya suddenly whispered in Maro's ear, asking if he was getting closer to his goals. Maro embarrassingly responded that it was going pretty well. Hearing Maro's response, Shinomiya told him that she would be cheering for him moving forward, and winked at him before leaving. Maro's friends immediately gave off a scary vibe and questioned Maro about the meaningful exchange he had with Shinomiya. A month has passed since Maro became an adventurer. Renka, Eliza, and Yuki have acquired multiple skills and become much stronger. Eliza has grown the most. Many of Eliza's skills changed after the battle with the Pied Piper. She now has a definite sense of self. Before, Eliza could only wait for Maro's instructions or copy him, but now she can think and act for herself, although her reactions are still a bit slow. Yuki also gained a new skill and is now one step closer to being the perfect hound dog. This skill makes it easier for Yuki to see through stealth-type skills. When Maro experimented with Renka's hide-and-seek, Yuki was able to locate her. For enemies that can't hide, Yuki can locate them from a considerable distance, which helps Maro clear labyrinths. As for Renka, her combat power has increased, but Maro made progress in other areas. Renka has become much more cooperative than Maro could have ever hoped. She is now becoming a top-tier support. More specifically, the drop rate for loot is more than 3 times higher than normal, making Maro wonder if Renka was a meta choice for pro adventurers. But for some reason, Maro hasn't read anything about pros using a Zashiki Warashi. Seeing Maro smirk, Renka asked why he was smirking. After being told by Maro that it was nothing, Renka told him to stop spacing out or he would fail the promotion exam. Maro is now up for the 2-star promotion exam. Over the past month, Maro has beaten 10 F-ranked labyrinths. That, combined with all his other achievements, earned him the right to promote his rank. One of the requirements for the exam is to beat an E-ranked labyrinth designed by the guild. After ordering Eliza to play the flute, she pulled out a card and manifested Hamelin's flute. Using Hamelin's flute, Maro can create a portal that can transfer them back and forth through safety zones on levels Maro has already visited. After creating a portal, Maro asked all of his summons if they were ready. Since they are on the 12th floor and coincidentally taking the exam on a holiday, Maro shared how he wanted to get through 2 or 3 floors. Renka told Maro that something was bugging her. When Maro asked what it was, Renka noted that they'd already made tons of progress in just 5 days, even though Maro was given a month to pass the exam. When Renka insinuated that Maro was trying to rush something, Maro couldn't look Renka straight in the eye at first. Feeling that his secret was found out, Maro shared how he wanted to make a name for himself before Christmas. Maro's face turned red when Renka asked if he was doing it for a girl. As Renka kept teasing Maro about his crush, Maro got annoyed and ordered everyone to move. Before Eliza could finish her sentence, Maro was suddenly struck by an arrow in his chest. Frightened by the arrow, Maro was relieved that his Kevlar vest had saved him. The biggest difference now, compared to before, is that higher-level labyrinths introduce traps. While F-rank labyrinths are huge, they don't have any deadly traps. This is why F-ranked labyrinths can be conquered in a single day. However, it is not the same with E-ranked labyrinths. Traps also change their location after a set amount of time. Because E-rank labyrinths take a lot of time to progress through, adventurers have to sleep in the labyrinth overnight. This is also why nearly half of adventurers slow down, and the other half give up on becoming 2 stars completely. Being a 1 or 2 star adventurer is not considered an achievement, as the adventurer only needs money. However, attaining a 3-star rank is where things get interesting. Maro regained his senses when Renka clapped near his face. She reminded Maro that they were with him to protect him and that he shouldn't be scared by an arrow. Relieved, Maro and his summons continued to venture through the E-rank labyrinth. Killing off monsters and opening chests, Maro noticed that he could not locate a staircase. When Yuki asked if they were lost, Maro responded that they weren't entirely. He explained that he had been mapping the passageways with a special phone app, but no matter how Maro looked at the app, the entire map was filled in. Yet Maro still couldn't figure out where the stairs were supposed to be. Maro was sure he hadn't made any mistakes, which made him wonder if there was a secret path with multiple corridors. Since they didn't have any leads, Renka suggested they focus on the current level and revisit every corner again. If they couldn't find anything, they would repeat it on the previous level. Renka mentioned that they still had time to clear the labyrinth and should be able to finish it before Christmas. Maro agreed with Renka and ordered that they head back to the floor's entrance and re-explore everything. Walking back to the labyrinth's entrance, the group continued to kill off monsters. As Maro and the others rested in the safety zone, Maro was getting more disappointed, but he was still happy since they were gaining more experience from the monsters that kept respawning. When Renka asked Maro if he wanted to talk about something to kill time, Maro asked her what she had in mind. Renka then asked Maro how he came up with their names. Embarrassed at first, Maro started with Eliza and shared how she was named after the heroine from a movie. Maro explained that the movie was based on a Greek myth where a doll becomes human. For Yuki, Maro explained that her name was spelled in katakana. Maro wanted Yuki's name to have multiple meanings. For Renka, Maro noticed that her hair and eyes had a little tinge of vermilion, which reminded him of a lotus flower. Yuki and Eliza were happy to learn the origin of their names, while Renka hid her blushing face. Maro and Renka ended up feeling embarrassed about the topic of their conversation. Renka stood up and told Maro that break time was over and that they had to get going. Maro smiled and agreed that they should continue with their exploration. When Eliza opened the door, Maro was surprised to see an imp in the room. Maro became excited after seeing the imp. He then ordered his summons to defeat the imp by any means. Renka was puzzled by Maro's orders since they had killed imps before and some had even dropped cards. Maro responded that the ones they had dealt with were male imps and that female ones were completely different. Renka followed Maro's orders and told him not to be disappointed if nothing happened. The female imp dodged Renka's attack and initiated a counterattack. However, Renka easily blocked the female imp's strike. Eliza then heard Maro's order and immediately used the spray can on the female imp. Surrounded by thick smoke, the female imp ended up choking and falling to the floor. When the female imp finally sensed Yuki's presence, it was too late for her to react, as Yuki pinned her with her paw. After learning that an imp card had dropped, Maro became excited. Holding the imp card, Maro couldn't believe his luck that a girl card had appeared. After being told by Renka that cards commonly drop after defeating a monster, Maro explained that they had never encountered a female monster before, which made him think that female monsters were being produced somewhere in secret and put on the market. When Maro was asked if he planned to use the card even though it was just an E-ranked card, Maro couldn't give an immediate answer. He decided to check the imp's skills first. Fairy Devil, Elementary Wizard Apprentice, Devilish Heart, and Single-Minded Heart. After reading the imp's skills, Maro assessed that they were pretty decent. He thought of selling the imp card for a very good price but was still hesitant since it was the first girl card he had obtained himself. Maro ended up deciding to use the imp, which pleased his other summons. Maro told himself that if he didn't name the imp, then he could just sell her later. Yuki and Renka were both excited to have a new friend and even promised to teach the imp discipline within their ranks. Maro found it strange to see Renka happy, which made him wonder if he had really made the right choice. Maro then made a small cut on his finger and summoned the female imp. After Maro put his blood on the card and summoned the monster, he was greeted by the female imp. Introducing herself in a cute manner, Maro stared at her and asked what she was doing. When the imp suddenly scored Maro without any reason, he became mad and asked her why she was scoring him. The imp told Maro that his score was not a failure and just had room for improvement. After suggesting Maro choose whatever answer sounded better to him, Maro became even more puzzled by the imp's words. When the imp asked Maro what her score was, he initially told her it was 90, but then changed it to 80. Annoyed, the imp asked Maro why he deducted 10 points. Maro explained that he took into account what trouble the imp might cause him in the future. Surprised, the imp smiled, liked Maro's answer, and decided to give him an additional 5 points. The imp then asked Maro's summons if they were his friends. Not expecting the imp to interact with them, Maro's summons introduced themselves individually. After Renka told the imp not to drag them down, the imp was surprised that Maro's summons had names. She then outright asked Maro what her name was and requested that he come up with a cute one. The sudden request surprised Renka, who told the imp not to be so impudent since she was still a newbie. As they bickered back and forth, Renka's anger went through the roof after being disrespected by the new member. Others tried to calm Renka down, but it was to no avail. Renka expressed her dislike towards the imp after being disrespected by her. Renka was holding on to her anger when the imp told her that she didn't need their approval. Renka swore to Maro that she would never forgive him if he gave the imp a name so quickly. When Maro agreed to Renka's request, the imp asked why he would agree to her being left out of the group. Maro then asked the imp to give him some time to think of a good name for her, and requested that she do her best to be accepted by everyone. After informing the imp that the other summons earned their names by working hard, the imp eventually agreed to Maro's terms. She then told Maro that he had better think of a very good name for her. As the imp smiled at Maro, Yuki and Maro became frightened as Renka fumed with anger. After peeking to see what they were up against, Maro saw a zombie, a high kobold, a sandman, and a nightmare all in one place. The sandman could throw out sleeping powder that he had stored up in his sleeve. While the victim was asleep, the nightmare killed them in their dreams. Maro was a little frightened by the monster combination they were up against. He expressed his intention of taking out the Sandman first, but it proved to be more difficult since the zombie and high kobold were in the way. The zombie had high durability and the high kobold could buff his allies. When the imp asked Maro which one they should target first, Maro couldn't give an answer since their enemies were all strong to begin with. The imp suggested to Maro that she cast her skill to make their enemies fall over. Renka then told the imp not to involve herself in planning any attacks, warning that if her plan failed, she could get herself killed in a single hit. The imp responded to Renka that she would be fine since Renka had the abilities of good luck. Maro was still hesitant, as the only thing they could depend on was Renka's luck. Then Maro gasped as he realized something. After informing the others of his plan, Maro asked them if they were ready. He initiated their plan by ordering Yuki to move first. Maro wanted Yuki to go after the Sandman first, but the zombie and high kobold were in the way. After seeing that only the zombie was in front, Maro saw an opening and took advantage of it. Using the combined skills of misfortune and luck intertwined, and the imp's slip spell, the zombie in front of them slipped, creating an opening for Yuki to lunge at the Sandman. Following Maro's orders, Eliza took care of the high kobold, putting a hole in its chest. When the zombie tried standing up, he became frightened after seeing Yuki's eyes. Finally, Maro ordered Renka to take care of their last enemy, the nightmare. Maro was not sure if the imp's skill would work, but since they used Renka's luck skill, they were able to increase the chance of their enemy slipping. Although Renka's skill is not commonly used for attacking opponents, it was still good at giving the opponent enough bad luck to be affected by the slip spell, With the imp's abilities, she could give Renka the opportunity to use her luck to their advantage. Maro later realized that the two actually had very good chemistry. However, how they felt about each other was a different story. Maro wondered if there was something he could do to remedy the group's discomfort. As Maro thought of using the imp more in the fight, his attention was called by Renka, who shared that she was craving candy and asked Maro to give her something to eat. After hearing the word candy, the imp became excited as it was her first time eating one. Maro did not expect that the imp would also like candy and was sure that she would mesh well with Renka. As the imp kept badgering Maro about the candy, he gave her one so that she could taste it for herself. Just as the imp was about to reach the candy, Renka intercepted it and told the imp that the candy was too big for her and that she would eat it instead. Renka's action enraged the imp, leading to another argument between them. When Renka mocked the imp's power level, the imp was about to snap when Yuki asked them to stop. Since Renka had started the fight, Yuki asked her to return the candy. When Maro told Renka that she could have his share, Renka became pissed, gave the candy back to Maro, and said she was just messing around. When Maro handed the candy back to the imp, she responded that she didn't want it anymore. Seeing the imp's sad face, Maro offered her a bite-sized chocolate. After Renka hugged the chocolate, Yuki offered to open it for her if she didn't know how. Maro called Renka and asked her what was going on. As Maro expressed how he was still clueless about monsters and their combat powers, Renka interrupted and admitted that she understood she had gone too far with the imp. When Renka shared how she couldn't help herself, Maro understood, remembering that Renka had acted the same way with him the first time they met. Maro guessed that some people just couldn't handle Renka's attitude. Renka reassured Maro that she wouldn't mind fighting alongside the imp. After clearing the issue, Renka told Maro that she would apologize when she got the chance. When Yuki approached Maro, he was surprised when she mentioned that the imp didn't mind fighting with the others. Happy, Maro thanked Yuki and said they now had to give Renka and the imp time to work things out. Seeing the imp and Renka with their backs to each other, Maro thought that it might take a while for them to make up. As the group continued their exploration, the imp noticed something and told everyone that the wall she was pointing at looked a little strange. When the imp shared how the wall felt different, Renka then observed the wall the imp pointed at and compared it to the other walls. Renka realized what the imp meant and shot a magic blast at the wall. The others were surprised when they saw the wall melting. Renka explained that it had never occurred to her that a monster could be disguised as a wall and that they had been completely fooled. The monster was mimicking a wall and blocking the room's entrance. Maro cheered and praised both the imp and Renka for finding the entrance. After entering a room, Maro saw a carbuncle and ordered his summons to capture it immediately. As the carbuncle tried to escape, the imp used her slip skill to make it slip. As Renka was about to blast the carbuncle, she was suddenly stopped by Maro. He then asked the imp to finish off the carbuncle, which surprised her, and she asked Maro for the reason. Maro explained that a carbuncle is an extremely rare monster that only appears in E rank or higher labyrinths. Carbuncles are hard to defeat because of their speed, which means that if they are defeated, they can significantly increase a monster's combat power. Maro knew that it would have been more efficient if Renka landed the killing blow, but he also wanted the imp to get an experience boost. Renka understood what Maro wanted and agreed to let the imp finish off the carbuncle. The imp was puzzled by Renka's decision but was told by Renka that she should kill the carbuncle since she was the one who found the place. The imp smiled and agreed to land the killing blow. As the two directed their attention to the monster, the carbuncle shed a tear before being killed. The group then received a chest drop, but noticed that it wasn't the usual chest they always encountered. Maro explained that the chest in front of them was a gold chest that only appears when a carbuncle is defeated. After ordering Eliza to open the chest, Maro became excited when it opened. Seeing an orb inside, Maro immediately grabbed it, feeling like he had won the lottery after obtaining a skill orb. The type of skill orb can be roughly identified by its color, and the one Maro found was blue, indicating a magic skill. Since it was a magic skill, Maro thought that only Renka and the imp were the most suitable to use it. When the imp saw Maro staring at her, she told him to use the orb on Renka since there was no point in giving it to her. Maro decided to give the skill orb to Renka. After Renka touched the orb, she asked Maro what skill she had received. After sharing with everyone that Renka received the skill called Elementary Status Effect Magic, Renka wished the imp good luck with her new master. The imp was mad, leading to another fight between the two. Maro noticed a light coming from the imp's card, and realized that he could no longer sell it as she and Renka had gained the skill of friendship linkage. As the group felt the heat in the labyrinth, Maro thanked the imp for cooperating with everyone and taking care of the carbuncle. Walking down the stairs, Maro was surprised when he smelled something foul, similar to a stagnant river. He then remembered a familiar experience and immediately turned around. Relieved to see the stairs behind him, Maro thought that he might face another irregular encounter. Yuki then informed Maro that the corridors on the floor went downhill, and beyond that was stagnant water. Maro had to cover his nose as the foul smell was coming from the water. He theorized that they were now on the last floor, since there were signs of the floor being modified. Yuki then told Maro to get on her back. Maro was worried that they might encounter a monster and that Yuki might have a hard time fighting. However, Yuki reassured Maro that they would be fine and pointed out that he would have a hard time moving in the water. After accepting Yuki's offer, Maro then ordered everyone to stay alert for any enemies. As Maro was thinking about the final boss, he noticed how comfortable and secure Yuki's back was. Maro then asked the imp about the types of magic she could use. When the imp asked Maro why he was curious, Maro responded that he just wanted to make sure they were ready for the incoming boss fight. The imp shared that she has 4 skills: Magic Blade, Slip, Rest, and Barrier Jacket. Maro became excited upon learning that the imp had a barrier skill. The imp then clarified that she couldn't put up a barrier, but rather the skill was more like wrapping it around someone. She revealed that the barrier was only as strong as another layer of clothing. Realizing that the imp's barrier wouldn't be able to help them much in battle, Maro asked about the Fairy Devil skill. The imp explained that she was already using the skill, which makes magic easier to use and more powerful. Feeling embarrassed, she shared that the skill usually works on her, but now that she has friendship linkage, Renka can also use Fairy Devil. Yuki smelled the enemy and immediately warned Maro that it was coming. Maro jumped into the water and ordered everyone to prepare for battle. He then realized that it was very difficult to move and wondered if they should retreat. When Eliza finally saw the enemy, a Kappa emerged from the water and tried to attack her. Unfortunately for the Kappa, Eliza blocked its attack, then grabbed the Kappa's arm and slammed it against the wall. After seeing the Kappa get slammed into the wall so hard, Maro was shocked to see it still conscious. He wondered what the Kappa's shell was made of since it was so sturdy. When the Kappa ran away from Maro and the others, Renka asked Maro to stop spacing out and suggested they chase the Kappa. Seeing Maro's puzzled look, Renka reminded him of the new skill she had obtained. Remembering the status effect magic, Imp interrupted Maro and Renka's conversation, wanting to help capture the Kappa. When Maro asked the two about the type of effect they could use, both Renka and Imp mentioned debility. Deep in the labyrinth, the Kappa resurfaced from the water, thinking it was safe. However, Eliza was right behind him, trying to capture it. Unfortunately, the Kappa noticed Eliza's sneak attack and immediately jumped away before getting harmed. The Kappa initiated a counterattack and used the water to its advantage. However, Eliza easily caught the Kappa when it tried to attack her face. Grabbing the Kappa's head, Eliza threw it against a wall, temporarily knocking it out. She then grabbed the Kappa's arm and subdued it. When the Kappa finally regained his senses, it was too late to react since Yuki was already in front of him and wounded the top of his head. When Maro caught up with the others, he ordered Eliza to release the Kappa. The skill used on the Kappa is called Debility, a status effect that rapidly depletes one's strength. Since the status effect is also enhanced by the Fairy Devil, it is more effective than poison. As the Kappa's body vanished, Imp cheered for their win. Knowing that the Kappa is a D-ranked monster, Maro guessed that it was the Master of the Labyrinth, and defeating it made him a 2-star adventurer. Imp asked Maro what a disappointment box was when she heard of it from him. Maro explained that a disappointment box appears whenever someone defeats the Master of the Labyrinth and looks like a very gorgeous treasure chest. Upon learning that the disappointment box didn't appear, Renka realized that the Kappa wasn't the Master and was most likely a familiar. Sensing that something was coming, Yuki warned Maro that she sensed multiple presences approaching. Maro then ordered Yuki and Eliza to hold off the enemies. He ordered Imp and Renka to cast Debility on their enemies. After giving additional orders to Imp to use her Slip skill and Renka to use her offensive magic, Maro asked Yuki how many enemies they were about to face. Emerging from the runoff water, Maro learned that they were facing 6 Kappas. Facing multiple D-ranked monsters, Maro found the situation unfavorable for them. Imp, along with the other summons, were getting frustrated from fighting so many monsters. Wondering how long the fight would last, Maro asked Eliza how many Kappas she had killed so far. Eliza responded that she now had 48 kills. As others suggested that they retreat, Maro encouraged them to bear a little longer as he could see they were getting closer to finishing the task. When Renka warned Maro that they would run out of energy if they kept up the same tactic, Maro reassured her that it would be over soon since it was about time for the boss to show up. Renka asked if he knew what the boss was going to be since he sounded very sure. Maro guessed that 9 out of 10 times, the boss would be a water tiger. A water tiger is one of the strongest D-ranked monsters considered mid to upper rank in terms of combat. When Yuki asked what the water tiger's skills were, Maro mentioned that it has a powerful skill called Kappa Boss. Imp thought the skill was very unfair since it can summon up to 48 Kappas. Maro explained that the summoned Kappas are more like illusions, weaker than real Kappas, and would disappear after some time. However, the Kappas they had taken out were not the same as the summoned ones. Maro assumed that the kappas were strengthened by the labyrinth. After learning about the water tiger, Renka was just relieved that they could now face it and not the kappas. Impressed with Maro's knowledge about monsters and labyrinths, Yuki heard something and reported to Maro that the boss was coming. Seeing the water tiger in front of them, Renka and Imp used ability multiple times. After successfully applying the skill to the water tiger, Maro instructed everyone to stall it so that the debility effects would build up. Maro was surprised when he saw the water tiger already in front of him. Before the water tiger could land its punch on Maro, Yuki was able to grab Maro and save him from harm's way. After creating some space from the water tiger, Maro realized how effective the kappas really were, as they had taken a toll on their power. Left with no choice but to wait for the debility's effect to kick in, Maro was surprised when Eliza jumped on the water tiger's back. As the water tiger's vision was being covered, it tried to use its claws to throw Eliza off. However, Renka didn't want to give the water tiger a chance and shot a magic blast at its arm. Seeing the arm still intact, Renka didn't expect that the arm would be very tough, as she wanted to blast it off. Renka was still pleased since her attack seemed to have done something else. The water tiger was now trembling in pain. When the water tiger finally got its hand on Eliza, it immediately threw her into the water. Slamming its fist into the water tiger assumed that it had finished off Eliza. However, it was surprised when a body didn't show up. When Renka called the water tiger's attention, it was surprised to see Eliza unharmed. After mocking the water tiger, Renka used her magic blasts to cause damage to it. Using the slip spell, the water tiger lost its balance and fell into the water. Seeing the opportunity, Maro ordered Renka to paralyze the water monster. Renka tried paralyzing the water monster, but it was still too powerful and could still resist. When the water tiger finally stood up and walked towards them, Renka used every bit of her power and successfully paralyzed it. Relieved that the spell worked, Renka expressed how scared she was since the paralysis spell wasn't working. Labyrinth lords have strong status resistance. Even a paralysis spell, one of the stronger status ailments, was still hard to cast on a lord. The four then directed their attention to the water tiger and beat it up. After finishing off the labyrinth lord, the group noticed that the runoff water was going down. Expecting to get a big reward, Maro finally saw the disappointment box appearing nearby. Seeing that it was another potion, Maro ended up disappointed. However, Renka had a different reaction. When Maro asked what was wrong, he was surprised to learn that the potion had the probability of being Amrita. Found in Indian mythology, the Amrita is also known as the elixir of immortality. Unlike the one in Mythos, the one Maro found wouldn't grant anyone immortality. Instead, it gives the effect of rejuvenation. The Amrita has strong healing properties that could even heal someone from the brink of death. While thinking of things he could do with the Amrita, Maro was asked by Renka if he was planning to sell it. After informing Renka that he was still undecided, Maro asked her how she knew it was Amrita. Renka couldn't give an explanation and just told Maro that Amrita came to her mind after seeing the potion. Wondering if there was some connection between the Amrita and Zashiki Warashi, Maro decided to keep the Amrita for the time being. The group then decided to head back home after completing the mission. With the completion of the E-ranked labyrinth, Maro was able to pass the 2-star promotion exam. As Maro's number was called by the receptionist, he was congratulated for becoming a 2-star licensed adventurer. After receiving his updated license, Maro became very excited, feeling that he was one step closer to becoming a 3-star adventurer. The labyrinth run had earned Maro quite a bit of money thanks to the reward and loot. He thought of bragging about his money but realized he would just become the target of jealousy or gossip. He decided to wait and brag when he finally became a 3-star adventurer. When Maro was about to leave the guild, he did not expect to encounter Ono. Maro assumed he would not cross paths with Eiji or Ono since they were in the Tachikawa guild. He later realized that the Hachioji guild was close to the Tachikawa guild. Maro regretted not choosing a guild further away until he got his 3-star license instead of choosing one nearby. Ono thought Maro had visited the guild to become an adventurer, but then realized Maro was already one. After questioning Maro, Ono learned that only he knew Maro was an adventurer. Before leaving, Ono told Maro that he was looking forward to working with him. The next day, when Maro arrived at school, he was immediately confronted by Nariken about being an adventurer. After receiving a cold reception from everyone, Maro had already expected what he would face and was sure Ono had revealed his secret. Being an adventurer can shoot anyone to the top of the school cast, but having 2 adventurers in the class is a different story. Nariken kept looking down on Maro, asking if he was trying to be cool like Eiji and Ono. Maro was annoyed, guessing that Nariken assumed he was a 1-star with no achievements. When Nariken asked Maro to show his cards, Maro remained calm as he no longer felt intimidated. After slapping Nariken's hand away, Maro told him they were not friends and that he never liked him from the beginning. Pushing Nariken and telling him to stop acting like they were friends, Maro then called Koga and asked who revealed he was an adventurer. After Koga revealed that he heard it from Ono, Maro asked Ono if he had done something to offend him. Ono apologized, telling Maro that he didn't expect revealing his secret would cause a problem. Maro knew Ono did it on purpose and lectured him about respecting privacy and not leaking information without permission. Ono apologized again but asked why Maro was hiding it. Maro was annoyed since Ono was still prodding him with questions that pissed him off the most. Maro had no intentions of hiding his secret forever. He just had a hard time finding the right moment to brag about it. When Maro responded that he was embarrassed about being an inexperienced adventurer, Ono condescendingly asked if he was making fun of him and Eiji since they were also inexperienced. Maro tried to clarify, but with Ono pestering him, Maro decided to say he was aiming to be a professional and was embarrassed about being inexperienced. The sudden revelation surprised everyone. Maro was of course lying since one can earn enough as a 2-star. Amazed by Maro's goal, Ono commented that it was still early for Maro to think of becoming a pro since they pretty much started becoming adventurers at the same time. As Ono assumed Maro was not yet a 2-star, everyone was surprised when Maro revealed that he was a 2-star adventurer. Eiji, having had enough, told Maro to stop lying and asked to see his license. When both Eiji and Ono saw that Maro was indeed a 2-star and had even subjugated an irregular encounter, their attitudes changed quickly, surprising Maro. After praising Maro, Ono shared how envious he was and commented that Maro must have reached a 2-star status due to having a really strong card and parental support. Ono then tried to get everyone on his side by portraying himself as a hardworking student saving money to obtain cards. When Ono asked Maro to show his cards, Maro sensed the situation was getting worse. Maro knew that one look at his cards would make anyone dubious about how he obtained them. With Renka's current power level, Maro was sure that buying a card like hers would cost tens of millions. In everyone's eyes, there was no way a brand new student adventurer could obtain such a card. Maro was confident that nobody would believe he only got lucky with the 1 million yen card. Realizing he could not turn the situation around, Shinomiya interrupted Maro and Ono's conversation and revealed that Maro also worked part-time jobs and saved up money. When both Shizuka and Shinomiya shared that they had seen Maro working at the supermarket, they assumed Maro was struggling to make ends meet. But after learning Maro's secret, Shizuka realized it was for the sake of his dreams. Seeing that Maro was being defended by 2 women, Ono jokingly asked if they were dating Maro. Ono's comment pissed off Shinomiya, who told him that his joke was boring. In retaliation, Shinomiya revealed that Ono was using his parents' money. Ono tried explaining that he mainly worked during holidays and summer, but Shinomiya was not having any of it, telling Ono that he should stop undermining people who work hard. Seeing that the atmosphere was now against him, Ono explained that he got pretty heated during the argument and apologized to Maro. When Ono asked Maro if he was going to the tournament, Maro was confused as he didn't know about any tournament. Ono then shared that there was a student-only Christmas Moncolo tournament from December 21st to 23rd. He further explained that the tournament had separate divisions for college and high school students, and that both divisions were only for amateurs, meaning it would be for 3 stars and below. Maro was shocked to find out that the winner of the tournament would get a C-ranked vampire card. Ono was sure Maro would enter the tournament since he was supposedly aiming to be a pro. Knowing that Ono was taunting him, Maro wanted to say no but ended up announcing that he would participate. When Ono informed Maro that they would all get together on Christmas to cheer him on, Maro was sure Ono just wanted him to lose his cards secretly. However, Maro also saw the tournament as an opportunity to boost his adventuring career and love life. Maro cried on Renka's lap and told her how mean his classmates were to him. Surprised, Renka asked Maro what had happened. After Maro explained the incident that occurred at school, Renka then asked him if he really was an idiot. Maro cried even more as he felt hurt by Renka's words and was now more worried about his standing in the class. Left with no choice, Renka told Maro that she would now use a Zashiki Warashi straw doll. As Renka placed a curse on Maro's classmates who were mean to him, Maro was horrified to learn that the curse Renka placed was the curse of defecating oneself on a crowded train. Renka's actions made Maro wonder if she had really cursed his classmates. Changing the topic, Maro expressed his determination to win the tournament. Renka asked Maro if he could just not participate, but Maro was not planning to withdraw from the tournament since the reward was too good to pass up. After sharing the prize for the tournament with Renka, Maro explained that female vampire cards were way out of his price range, and if it were a different card, he wouldn't even bother entering. If they won the tournament, Maro planned to rank up Eliza since she had done so much for him. Weak when it came to Eliza, Renka decided to do whatever she could to help out. Before sharing his plan, Maro first explained the rules of the tournament to everyone. The tournament would be a bracket elimination type with a standard rule set of 3 versus 3. Participants would create and register a deck of 10 cards beforehand. During a match, an adventurer would choose 3 cards from the deck and fight. If the adventurer got directly attacked or lost all their cards, they would lose. Each match had a time limit of 10 minutes. If time ran out, the loser would be determined by the adventurer with fewer remaining cards. After sharing the tournament's standard format, Maro emphasized that the key to winning was to have as many cards survive until the end of the match. Knowing that the deployment of cards was crucial, Imp became mad at Renka for excluding her name from the list of cards. As the two started arguing again, Maro reassured Renka that he would train Imp. However, with only 20 days left before the tournament, Maro was having difficulty obtaining more cards. Maro planned to first train Renka, Yuki, and Eliza to their limits by clearing labyrinths. At the same time, he planned to save up the money from clear rewards and use it to buy a D-ranked card to rank up Imp. Maro shared that he planned to fill the rest of the deck with E-ranked cards that had special skills. Renka suggested that he could cover everything if he sold the Amrita, but Maro wanted to keep it as insurance in case he lost one of his summons. Amrita could be sold for about 100 million yen, which was enough for Maro to revive everyone. After learning about the revival costs, Renka no longer objected to Maro's plans. Maro then told everyone that they would now be very busy, announcing their goal to beat 10 E-ranked labyrinths using Hamelin's flute. Starting his journey in conquering labyrinths and gaining some popularity in school, Maro did not notice the angry IG spying on him. After gaining enough money, Maro handed Imp her card. After thanking Maro for the opportunity to rank up, Imp used the card to evolve into Empusa. Acquiring a new set of skills, Empusa was now human-sized. Empusa was grateful to Maro but insinuated that she would be even more grateful if Maro gave her a name. Maro had already expected this and had prepared a name. Since Empusa had proven herself as an indispensable part of the team, Maro gave her the name Mare. Maro was shocked when he saw Mare tearing up. Thinking he had given her a bad name, Maro tried to explain what the name meant. Mare explained that it was not the reason she cried. She had not expected Maro to actually give her a name. She then vowed to Maro that she would do her best and promised that he would not regret giving her a name. Maro smiled at Mare, looking forward to working with her. On the day of the match, Maro was standing outside the stadium. Seeing that many people were strangely nervous, Maro assumed they were like him. Noticing two dazzling individuals, Maro thought they were the frontrunners of the tournament. Arriving at his room, Maro was surprised to see that it was very nice. To avoid trouble, the organizer had given each participant their own room. With some time before being called, Maro decided to review his strategy. He chose Eliza first as her skills helped a lot in speedrunning labyrinth explorations. Eliza also had the Protector skill, which made Maro decide to put her first. With the newly obtained Sandman and Nightmare, Maro planned to use the combination of the two E-rank monsters in the tournament. Sandman made enemies fall asleep, while Nightmare sapped the health of the Dreamer's messenger. The Sandman could put Mare, who had just become an Empusa, to sleep, and the Nightmare's presence blocking went unnoticed by everyone except Yuki. After running more battle simulations, Maro received a call that his opponent would be displayed on the television. Opening his television, Maro was shocked to see his enemy. When it was finally time for the match, Maro was first introduced as the Adventurer, who held a 2-star license with the subjugation of an irregular encounter under his belt. On stage, the host revealed that Maro's opponent would be his fellow classmate, Minamiyama Eiji. Monster Coliseum is a new sport where adventurers fight using cards. It all started when the Tokyo Dome became a labyrinth during the second Anglemois. For a labyrinth, the Tokyo Dome had a rather unique system. Only one master would spawn every day. Once it's defeated, nothing else spawns for the rest of the day. Due to the labyrinth's unique system, it showed no problem in using the Tokyo Dome as an event venue. However, for things like basketball, it was still not allowed. The governor at the time realized that the dome was just a giant empty box. They later decided to transform it into a coliseum. The event was a huge success. TV shows were created one after another, and all of them achieved high ratings. One of the shows became especially popular, which was called Gladiator. The show became a huge hit that the gladiator became a term used to refer to adventurers who made a living in the Coliseum. The culmination of events led to Monster Coliseum becoming a nationwide phenomenon. Back in the current time, the host was now hyping up the crowd for the 6th match of the first round. Maro was surprised when the host mentioned that Shigeno would be commentating on the match with them. As a former Self-Defense Force officer, the host wanted to know Shigeno's perspective about Eiji and Maro. Shigeno mentioned that Eiji was a methodical and reliable person. For Maro, Shigeno mentioned how Maro gives off the impression of being a gambler. When the host asked Shigeno what he meant by a gambler, Shigeno didn't want to spare the details and just responded that Maro is willing to risk it all for the sake of his dreams. Shigeno added that Maro was the type of person that one would really leave their eyes on. When Maro heard the host leaking personal information, he laughed upon learning that he had an advantage. Eiji then called Maro and ordered him to stop being an adventurer if he loses the match. Maro was confused and asked Eiji why he would do that. When Maro told Eiji that he would never quit becoming an adventurer, Eiji became mad and decided to put matters in his own hands. Eiji told Maro that he'll make sure that Maro would never call himself an adventurer again. As the match finally started, Both participants summoned their monsters at the same time. Maro chose to summon Eliza and Sandman. The host was puzzled since he couldn't locate the third monster, and assumed that it was hiding using a skill. IG, on the other hand, chose to summon a boar orc and 2 high kobolds. Based on the monsters IG chose, Maro guessed that AG is using a summoning strategy. The boar orc is a D-ranked monster, while the 2 high kobolds are E-rank. Maro had 2 ways of dealing with the enemy: either endure the battle until the summoning limit is reached or end the match as quickly as Maro can before he gets overwhelmed. Choosing the latter option, Maro immediately ordered Sandman. After AG ordered his monsters to start summoning, he was surprised when the high kobolds got knocked out. It was then revealed by the host that the Sandman has put the high kobolds to sleep with sleeping sand. Maro's tactic was not very effective against the boar orc, which gave it the opportunity to summon a lesser orc. After hearing that the high kobolds could easily be woken up, IG ordered his monster to quickly wake the high kobolds. However, Maro had already anticipated AG's move and ordered Eliza to take care of the summoned orc. The crowd became wild after witnessing Eliza's monstrous power. Witnessing Eliza dodge the boar orc's attack, the host could tell that Eliza was well taught. Knowing that the boar orc had a higher rank than a ghoul, IG ordered the boar orc to keep on attacking. Maro found the situation favorable to him. IG is slipping up, which was thanks to the surprise kill on the summoned orc. It was true that a boar orc would usually win against a ghoul if the battle goes long enough. And in the event that Eliza would be taken out, Maro was sure that the Sandman would not win against the boar orc either. To get a chance of winning the match, Maro gave Eliza the signal. After hearing Maro's order, Eliza continued a back-and-forth attack with the boar orc. Fighting up in the air, Eliza gained the advantage after kicking the boar orc's back, making the boar orc fall harder. While IG was shocked that his boar orc lost, the host praised Maro's ghoul for using a gorgeous technique to defeat a boar orc. Since ghoul monsters are not very common, the host asked Shigeno if the ghoul was such a powerful monster. Shigeno shared that ghouls are one of the weakest D-ranked cards. The initial combat power is low, and since ghouls lack ego, complex movements are hard to execute. However, Maro's ghoul had smooth movement, which Shigeno assumed that Maro's ghoul acquired a skill to help with its movements. Maro's ghoul received high praises from Shigeno since they've never seen a ghoul trained to such an extent. IG then tried to use his high kobolds but was surprised when the high kobolds were gone. Seeing that a black mist was the only thing that's left, Shigeno shared that Maro's third monster was a nightmare. Shigeno then explained that the Sandman put the high kobolds to sleep, while the nightmare took care of the rest. Seeing that AG no longer has any monsters that he can use, Maro ordered Eliza to directly attack IG. After breaking IG's barrier, the host then announced Maro as the winner. The host shared that the huge disparity in experience played a major role for Maro in winning the match. Seeing IG getting mad for losing, Maro still had little respect for him. Even though AG was an ordinary mob like Maro, IG still managed to join the normie group. But more than that, Maro was insanely jealous of AG. Seeing AG making a name for himself was Maro's driving force in becoming an adventurer. However, it was now different, as Maro realized that he was putting in more effort than AG did. After Maro turned around, IG became enraged as he could not accept that he lost to Maro. Out of anger, IG called out the boar orc. Maro was stunned after seeing the boar orc coming towards him. Fortunately for Maro, Eliza was there to protect him. After kicking the boar orc, Maro was horrified when he saw Eliza devouring the boar orc. The host immediately called their staff to protect both players on the stage. Eliza's TV debut started off with a broadcast accident. That is the end of the recap for now. Please read the pinned comment about the next part.